Okay, let's pick up where we left off with an inspector calls. So let's read the last thing that we read before. Mr. Burling, yes, of course. He clears his throat. Well, Gerald, I know you agreed that we should only have this quiet little family party. It's a pity Sir George and Lady Croft, can't be with us. But they're abroad, and so it can't be helped. As I told you, they sent me a very nice cable. Couldn't be nicer. I'm not sorry that we're celebrating quietly like this. Mrs. Burling, much nicer, really. Gerald, I agree. Burling, so do I, but it makes speech-making more difficult. Eric, not too rudely. Well, don't do any. We'll drink their health and have done with it. Burling, no we won't. It's one of the happiest nights of my life, and one day I hope, Eric, when you've a daughter of your own, you'll understand why. Gerald, I'm going to tell you frankly, without any pretences, that your engagement to Sheila means a tremendous lot to me. She'll make you happy, and I'm sure you'll make her happy. You're just the kind of son-in-law I always wanted. Your father and I have been friendly rivals in business for some time now, though Crofts Limited are both older and bigger than Burling and Company. And now you've brought us together, and perhaps we may look forward to the time when Crofts and Burlings are no longer competing, but are working together for lower costs and higher prices. Gerald, hear, hear, and I think my father would agree to that. Mrs. Burling, now, Arthur, I don't think you should talk business on an occasion like this. Sheila, neither do I. All wrong. Burling, quite so. I agree with you. I only mentioned it in passing. What I did want to say was that Sheila's a lucky girl, and I think you're a pretty fortunate young man too, Gerald. I know I am, this once, anyhow. Burling, raising his glass. So here's wishing the pair of you the very best that life can bring, Gerald and Sheila. Mrs. Burling, raising her glass, smiling. Yes, Gerald. Yes, Sheila, darling. Our congratulations and very best wishes. Gerald, thank you. Gerald, thank you. Mrs. Burling, Eric. Eric, rather noisily. All the best. She's got a nasty temper sometimes, but she's not bad, really. Good old Sheila. Sheila, chump, I can't drink to this, can I? When do I drink? Gerald, you can drink to me. Sheila, quiet and serious now. All right, then. I drink to you, Gerald. For a moment they look at each other. Gerald, quietly. Thank you, and I drink to you, and hope I can make you as happy as you deserve to be. Sheila, trying to be light and easy. You be careful, or I'll start weeping. Gerald, smiling. Well, perhaps this will help to stop it. He produces a ring case. Sheila, excited. Oh, Gerald, you've got it. Is it the one you wanted me to have? Gerald, giving the case to her. Yes, the very one. Sheila, taking out the ring. Oh, it's wonderful. Look, Mummy, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it a beauty? Oh, darling. She kisses Gerald hastily. Okay, so obviously we've got Burling kind of bringing business into like why he wants his daughter to marry this guy, and it's clear that like this is a huge thing on his mind, is like business and competition within business and like uniting with a strong family, and so he's seeing this as like sort of a semi-political union, and we have Gerald kind of agreeing to that and kind of sucking up to his future father-in-law. We've got Sheila and Mrs. Burling being like, this is not appropriate to an engagement party. And so, yeah, they're talking about that. And then we get these kind of like it kind of creates this like very fake atmosphere of them just being like, oh yes, let's celebrate the engagement. But it's like it's building this picture of like this beautiful, happy family life that's about to be shattered. I don't think that this is full of things that are going to be useful for writing your essays. Yeah, like I think people really zone in on like the look, mummy, isn't it a beauty? I think that's like fair that she like calls her mother mummy. That's like does show how young she is, and you can contrast that with how she is later on. You can also talk about the fact that kind of he's distracted her with something shiny and materialistic, and like sort of comment on the shallowness of her character, and also like maybe this is sort of part of how he kind of like steers things to kind of manipulate her, but it's not dense, this part. This is quite light. You can take it at sort of surface level, I reckon. Okay, Eric, steady the buffs. Sheila, who has put the ring on admiringly. I think it's perfect. Now I really feel engaged. Mrs. Burling, so you ought, darling. It's a lovely ring. Be careful with it. Sheila, careful. I'll never let it go out of my sight for an instant. Mrs. Burling, smiling. Well, it came just at the right moment. That was clever of you, Gerald. Now, Arthur, if you've got no more to say, I think Sheila and I had better go into the drawing room and leave you men. Burling, rather heavily. I just want to say this, noticing that Sheila is still admiring her ring. Are you listening, Sheila? This concerns you too, and after all, I don't often make speeches at you. Sheila, I'm sorry, Daddy. Actually, I was listening. She looks attentive, as they all do. He holds them for a moment before continuing. So we've got Eric uncomfortable with their relationship. We've got Mrs. Burling treating Sheila as a bit of a child, like being like, be careful with it. And she's like, of course I'll be careful with it. Sheila again calls her father Daddy, which also like shows the kind of weird childhood thing that's going on. And also like Mrs. Burling being like, well, it came at just the right moment, because they're all trying to avoid Sheila crying. Which kind of, I guess, shows like how emotion isn't really welcomed, and also kind of shows how they're all kind of trying to manage Sheila, and like that's another way that she's kind of like treated a bit like a child. And like the fact that he like calls her to attention. All of those things are like, there's some small points to make there. Okay, Burling, I'm delighted about this engagement, and I hope it won't be too long before you're married. And I want to say this, there's a good deal of silly talk about these days, but I speak as a hard-headed businessman who has to take risks and knows what he's about. I say you can ignore all this silly pessimistic talk. When you marry, you'll be marrying at a very good time. Yes, a very good time. And soon it'll be an even better time. Last month, just because the miners came out on strike, there's a lot of wild talk about possible labour trouble in the near future. Don't worry, we've passed the worst of it. We employers at last are coming together to see that our interests and the interests of capital are properly protected, and we're in for a time of steadily increasing prosperity. Gerald, I believe you're right, sir. Eric, what about war? Burling, glad you mentioned it, Eric. I'm coming to that. Just because the Kaiser makes a speech or two, or a few German officers have too much to drink and begin talking nonsense, you'll hear some people say that war's inevitable. And to that I say, fiddlesticks. The Germans don't want war. Nobody wants war except some half-civilized folks in the Balkans. And why? There's too much at stake these days. Everything to lose and nothing to gain by war. Eric, yes, I know, but still. So here is where we're like really getting to see Burling's ideology. So the fact that he identifies himself as a hard-headed businessman, we see that over and over and over again. And so it's clear that that's really core to how he self-identifies, and what he thinks about himself. The way he kind of like diminishes and the other political view, like silly talk these days, you can ignore the silly pessimistic talk, which is great. And then the fact that he talks about like our interests and the interests of capital, and the fact that those are kind of like the same thing. He's like identifying himself with the upper capitalist class and kind of giving a bit of an indication of like what their interests are, and the fact that he sees it as like a class identity, us versus them. That's all like really interesting and helps flesh out like what is it the inspector is actually trying to speak out against. Well, it's this. And even here we see like examples of Eric beginning to try and challenge that view, but he's not really exactly confident, and it's just at the very beginning, just a clue. And then Burling says, just let me finish, Eric. You've a lot to learn yet, and I'm talking as a hard-headed, practical man of business. So there we see it again. And I say there isn't a chance of war. The world's developing so fast that it will make war impossible. Look at the progress we're making. In a year or two, we'll have aeroplanes that will be able to go anywhere. And look at the way the automobile is making headway, bigger and faster all the time. And then ships. Why, a friend of mine went over this new liner last week, the Titanic. She sails next week. 46,800 tons, New York in 5 days, and every luxury, and unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable. That's what you've got to keep your eye on, facts like that, progress like that, and not a few German officers talking nonsense and a few scaremongers here making a fuss about nothing. Now you three young people, just listen to this and remember what I'm telling you now. In 20 or 30 years' time, let's say in 1940, you may be giving a little party like this, your son or daughter might be getting engaged. And I tell you, by that time you'll be living in a world that'll have forgotten all these capital versus labour agitations and all these silly little war scares. There'll be peace and prosperity and rapid progress everywhere, except of course in Russia, which will always be behindhand, naturally. Okay, so obviously we've got Burling cutting Eric off at the beginning of this speech. We've got, again, the same things of like, I'm a practical businessman, and we've got the silly little war scares, and he's diminishing any other view. And he also talks about how his view is facts, hard facts that can be relied upon. And you see that his view is very black and white. It's like there will either be progress or there will be war. And he talks in certainties, like in a year or two we'll have this. This is unsinkable. This is what's happening. Like, and he exists in a world of certainties, which kind of also is like a feature of the upper class view that he holds. Now we've got something that they like us to notice here called like dramatic irony, where the viewer knows something that the characters don't know. And so the thing about the Titanic, like we all know, even the contemporary audience, the audience at the time knew that the Titanic had sunk. And so we kind of get this, like, he's talking in certainties, but we know that those certainties don't exist. And obviously for us now, at the time he's speaking, we know that, like, at the time he's speaking, he doesn't know this yet, but we know that 2 world wars happened between him speaking and us now. Obviously he's a fictional character, but you know what I mean. And so these certainties that he's relying on are not certain. And so we get this like dramatic irony. But he's trying to make them see that they've got hope, and trying to make them see that they live in a world that is progressing ever more towards supporting the interest of the upper class. That's what he thinks. And obviously Mrs. Burling interrupts him. And so whenever we have these like Mrs. Burling objecting, we can see that she like objects to something about what's happening, either because she thinks it's like not proper, or it's not like good manners, or she thinks like someone's talking too much about a certain thing. And so we get an understanding of what like upper class manners are supposed to be like, and we get a bit of an understanding of what she is like. Burling says, "Yes, my dear, I know I'm talking too much, but you youngsters just remember what I said. We can't let these Bernard Shaws and H.G. Wellses do all the talking. We hard-headed practical businessmen must say something sometime, and we don't guess. We've had experience and we know." Mrs. Burling rising, the others rise. "Yes, of course, dear. Well, don't keep Gerald in here too long. Eric, I want you a minute." She and Sheila and Eric go out. Burling and Gerald sit down again. Okay, so important to know who Bernard Shaws and H.G. Wells are. Bernard Shaws was like a thinker of the day. He wrote some books on philosophy and on society. And H.G. Wells was a fiction writer who wrote about time travel, but both of them had like a socialist mentality. Socialism being like the same view as the Inspector of, we have to look after one another. And so Burling is being like, don't listen to them, don't pay too much attention to what they're saying. I know because I have experience, and so this is what life is like. You can listen to me and you can trust my opinion. And so that's kind of what he's saying. And then the scene the scene doesn't end, because like that's not the technical language, but like as in we're moved on, because 3 of the characters leave the stage and we're just left with Gerald and Burling. And so we're going to see in the next episode what they say to each other while there's no one else in the room. So tune in next time for the next segment.